Well, there's LA Bowl updates, and hey, UCLA just come off a very close loss to Villanova that could have bolstered that lack of quad one win for UCLA. What do they need to do? All that and more here on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson Yoxhammer. Thanks for making the show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for making this your first listen each and every day. Hey, the Bruins, stuff's going to be happening in the portal, and a little bit of some absences in practice and some guys who are not going to play in the LA Bowl, and some coaching switches for UCLA heading into the LA Bowl against Boise State. We're going to start with basketball, though, as this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Well, UCLA certainly hasn't made their life easy so far this season for Mick Cronin, who had to overcome a dastardly battle with COVID, and then finally came back just to yell at his team some more for the Bruins to fall a little bit short. A 9-point loss to Villanova on the road, even though that game was not a 9-point game. It was very much back and forth. I believe 10 lead changes, 4 ties, a game where both teams led by 7 or more points. And it very much came down to the final couple minutes where a missed blockout led to an opponent's layup at the shot clock buzzer. And the Bruins almost, just like they've done in their 3 losses, fight back, get back in, have a chance to be within a couple of points in the final minute, generally against Gonzaga, against Marquette, and now here against Villanova. UCLA is one of those teams that does not have a true road win this year. That's something the Bruins are going to have to wait until conference play to get, because they get Ohio State on a neutral site. Still would be a good victory to bolster their lackluster resume at the moment in terms of marquee wins. Any win is important, but most importantly, UCLA has struggled to rebound, to get the too big lineup to go good, and down the stretch, the cramps from Dylan Andrews that Mick Cronin talked about led the Bruins, unfortunately, one of a few reasons, to the Bruins to fall to Villanova, where UCLA just can't rebound the basketball, which is why Mick Cronin, in his post-game pressure, in a sense, called out Adem Bona, right? Saying, the kid's got a rebound. I love him. He loves the kid. He gives a lot of praise to his players, but he's not afraid when given the microphone to call him out. It wasn't like a crazy lambasting. It wasn't something super crazy, but it was enough to notice, hey, he went after his player and is trying to keep his future NBA first rounder accountable in a season where he needs the sophomore to act more like a junior, senior-like veteran, when that just isn't necessarily the case in terms of age and experience. A year where he played the majority of the season and then missed the NCAA tournament games other than one. And here they are looking to try to rebound and find a way to grow as a team and not make young mistakes as youthful as they are. Cronin will keep pointing to the 18-year-olds that he has, 4 of them? Well, the Bruins knew that was going to be the case this season. Cronin's not going to go aggressively after players in the portal other than Lazar Stefanovic. But with Beneke out, the Bruins must rebound. 2 separate Nova players came away with rebounds. Eric Dixon, Tyler Burton, and then you look at Adem Bona, who got 8 rebounds, but Cronin's asking for double digits. He needs to start getting into double-double like dominance to be a true NBA player. And while he is listed taller than what he actually stands, his athleticism, his strength, for the listed 6'10" forward/center from Nigeria, he's someone that needs to grow in his game overall. Obviously, the jump shot's not necessarily a part of his game that's been added consistently just beyond the free throw line. But let's take a look at his rebounding numbers these last few games, right? These are things that are somewhat not the best. You've got 3 total rebounds against Marquette in 30 minutes played, 6 rebounds against Chaminade, 22 minutes played. That was a beatdown. Maybe get a pass for that. 4 rebounds against Gonzaga, 22 minutes. Foul trouble there. UC Riverside, 4 rebounds. Foul trouble there as well. And then 8 rebounds. We got better, but Mick Cronin said, hey, look at all these missed rebounds. The key play in this game was when Nova was down 4, went to the free throw line to shoot 2, and made the first, missed the second. Ball gets popped out, leads to an open kick out 3, and it's a 4-point possession. Nova ties the game at 45, and they go on a little run to pull away to get up 9 with just under 3 minutes remaining. A game that not necessarily was controlled by UCLA, but very, very winnable. And is the difference between seeding to getting in the tournament. I'm still confident that they will. I know there's, some people who think very differently about this Bruins team. The freshmen suck or this and that. They do all need to grow, but it does start with players who are returning, like an Adem Bona, in this game that we just need more of. UCLA needs more out of him. 11-8 is not bad. It's not a terrible performance. It's not like he's no-showing, but UCLA needs Bona to transform into the superstar that Cronin is proclaiming. And I don't want this to fall into Adem Bona because that's just not the case. But those numbers rebounding, a little glaring as his rebound numbers are about 6.5 per game. They need to be a little bit closer to 9.5 for UCLA to be a much better team when you go against the size that is Arizona when you play them. When you go against size that USC has in the paint, like Iwuchukwu and Josh Morgan, even though they just lost to Long Beach State in front of a sold-out Galen Center and blew a 17-point lead, that's still going to be a struggle for the Bruins if they can't take care of the basketball, get shots to fall, and be big down in the paint. Is there any time to make fun of SC when they lose? All the time when they lost to Long Beach State. Keep it going. But for UCLA, got to get wins. You got a week off. Hopefully Better K is okay. There's been no update. But one of the things that shouldn't go unnoticed, every single UCLA player, except for one, in this game, well, usually a weird stat, in plus-minus against Villanova, every single player but one was minus by the end of the game. Every single player, except for Dylan Andrews, who was +4 in 24 minutes. That is the impact he had just by simply being on the floor and being out. And I love McClendon's ability to hit threes, playing 31 minutes, 3 of 4. He's been absolutely fantastic. But Sebastian Mack, I think, was somebody that probably would have taken a seat on the bench. I know he can score, but he didn't get to the free throw line. 3 of 10. He's going to have those games. He's a youngster, but he was -16. So when you see the difference there, -16 versus +4, that's the difference between, hey, you want a veteran guard. If McClendon's playing really well in a game or playing well like he is, you can see the value of McClendon on the floor with a Dylan Andrews 1 and 2 combo, I would think, with Lazar Stefanovic. Then you try and get your combination of bigs and power forwards with Bona on the floor, maybe if Lazar's the 4, whatever you want to play. But you can see the benefit of Andrews. When he plays well, the team goes as much as how good the freshman will play as Andrews being on the floor. He was a little bit banged up when that Marquette run happened in Honolulu during the Maui Invitational. Cramped up, everybody goes through these things, and wasn't on the floor during a big little spurt for Villanova, and that's the importance of Andrews. He maybe hasn't put up like a 30. He hasn't done something super crazy, but the importance is how the opposition goes on runs. He can control the game without posting numbers. So we need to see more from Bona, and we love to see more numbers from Andrews. The durability is a question. Hopefully, to play Tiger Campbell-like numbers, 35, some ridiculous numbers Tiger would play over the last 4 seasons. That's being asked of Andrews in year number 2 with a much bigger role handed to him in his second year as a UCLA Bruin. Rebounding's a key. Loving the McClendon growth in year 2 and the importance of Dylan Andrews and the need for Bona to be more physical in the paint. Realize how athletic he is, how dominant he is, not play too quick. Just this sheer burst vertically or horizontally, or his agility to move side to side to play defensively is something he must realize to become a truly dominant player for UCLA, and then an NBA pick. And if he wants to be a lottery pick, even thought about in those aspects, a first rounder, rebound the basketball. You know who gets to the NBA? People who can rebound the basketball and be big time defensive stoppers. I know his offensive game is a little limited, but getting there, rebounding the basketball defensively, and not having silly fouls consistently in different games will make him that player that Cronin's been asking for, that he's been talking about, that we need to see as UCLA fans to get that UCLA team, at least in the paint, until Adem maybe grows, until Beta K is healthy, until someone else establishes himself as the second interior presence. It's all falling in Bona's shoulders. A lot of weight right there, right? So many bigs, but Bona's taken that mantle. And can he bring UCLA to get easy points in the paint? That is a question that will be answered in future games against teams that are very big in the Pac-12. Utah just dominated BYU. A lot of teams. There's the talk about in the Pac-12, no quad one wins. And then all of a sudden, you've gotten Utah getting a big win against BYU at home. You got Colorado just wiping the floor with Miami away from home. And now all of a sudden teams are starting to pick up big W's away from home. And the Pac-12 is not as easy as it was heading into conference play going to the end of December. The Bruins got to get a win away from home, put something on the resume, and then Pac-12 play is not going to be as hard, as easy as it seems. Grades, a C- for UCLA in this game. A little bit harsh, optimistic that this team can figure it out for sure. There's been glimpses. It seems slightly reminiscent in a different way of the team a couple of years ago, but you can't just expect the team to turn it on in March. And I do know this team will be playing its best basketball on the flip side. You just hope they've already punched their ticket with wins in conference play. A win, hopefully, of Ohio State and Maryland. And no ugly mid-major losses in their midst of holding a home game winning streak, home stretch, right? Those are important for UCLA to get deeper in everything. Speaking of UCLA football, they've got all these things that are either crumbling, building, shifting around. Who's going to be coaching the bowl game? Who might be taking coaching spots? We'll talk about that next. And hey, who wasn't at practice? We'll talk about those reports next on Locked On UCLA. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, exhaust kits, and more, whether you're into speed, power, and style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Because with over 120 million plus parts for your number one ride or die, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that dub. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. So some updates for UCLA heading into the LA Bowl and potentially the future for UCLA. Finally, some announcements mixed in from reports, whether it be Tracy McDowell, the Bruin Blitz, Bro Report, James Williams. There's all these guys who are just throwing things out. And Chip Kelly speaking himself to the presser, all mixture of these reports coming together. And I think the biggest report, with all seriousness, is Gronk's going to sing the national anthem at the LA Bowl and do multiple crazy things that just seem goofy. Who knows? Okay. All right. I digress. We'll see Gronk. We'll see too much of Gronk. You either love it, you'll hate it, and we'll see how it plays out when he's at a UCLA game for the second time this season. Because last time it did not go so well for UCLA. The Bruins taking on Boise State. Again, Boise State just naming a permanent head coach. They are down to maybe their third or fourth string quarterback, considering last year's bowl game in the Sun Bowl. UCLA fans, we should not take anything lightly in this respect that, hey, they're down to a third. string quarterback. No. Full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. All right. Now for UCLA, you've got 3 coaches who are taking coaching responsibilities during the bowl game. It could be a sign of things to come for UCLA, right? You've got Ken Niumatalolo, director of leadership, behind the scenes, not an official coaching coach for UCLA. That's going to change for on-field coaching assistants here. Then you've got Greg Burns, Clancy Pendergast, who are all 3 guys that are going to be coaching for UCLA, taking on coaching responsibilities. And one of the things I noticed was that Ikaika Malloy is going to be calling defensive plays from what I've read. And he was a former co-defensive coordinator for different seasons, did that a little bit at the end of his Washington tenure. I would have thought maybe you give Ken Norton Jr. a run at that if the Bruins are going to try and go in-house for who might be the next defensive coordinator. I was thinking Norton Jr. might be that guy you put on that opportunity, thrust him in that role. But it's Ikaika Malloy, who, again, he's the recruiter that brought all this talent between the Murphy twins, between Latu. And I was watching him being interviewed when he was a coach at his alma mater in Washington, when he was deemed a great recruiter there, bringing in good recruits to Utah State, to Washington, coaching for that team from Coach Lake to Chris Peterson. UCLA is secretly blessed to have him on their coaching staff. And maybe the in-house hire, if the Bruins are going to do that, might be Ikaika Malloy. Wouldn't that be something if that was a twist? Now, I don't want to read too much into it, other than that you had one option I thought you might lean towards to call plays in the bowl game, but Malloy's the recruiter. You want to retain him on the staff. And if the Bruins are going to get severe, big-time talent and develop them, hey, what was the best part of the defense? Definitely the defensive line. Who coaches that? Who is adding on more to his plate this season? Ikaika Malloy. And I hope the Bruins keep him. He doesn't get wooed elsewhere. And, hey, I wonder what that will look like, this defense, which will have no Laiatu Latu, right? There will be no Latu. He is opting out of the bowl game. That is the announcement. A lot of big things since he won the Lombardi Award, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year Award, all the awards, consensus All-American. Everything is stacking up for one of my favorite Bruins ever. And he is important to the UCLA defense. He will not be playing. Now, when it comes to guys who may or may not return this season, let alone play in the bowl game, Kane Medrano still undecided about another year. Hudson Habermill will play one more year for UCLA. And from the reports, it looks like there are 0 guys in the transfer portal that will actually play in the game, which makes quite a bit of sense. No guys in the portal will stick around for the bowl game. Even though it's early in the bowl system and finals, everything, they're going to focus on their finals, get those grades right, and then head elsewhere for their final year or years of eligibility. Now, the interesting part for UCLA was a couple of missed guys at practice, a couple of absences, notably Carson Steele and John Humphrey, 2 key pieces, one on offense, one on defense, and those names haven't floated around the portal. I'm not sure if or why Carson Steele do anything. He would have to graduate to leave for John Humphrey. He was a starting DB, and that was reported by, I'm reading Tracy McDaniel. We've got Bro Report saying, hey, these guys aren't there. Now there's been nothing official. Absences can happen for one reason or another. And during this part of the year, right, think about it. This is when guys are studying for finals. Not that it's going to mean you miss a practice for a bowl game, but we have to pause saying, that's unique that there were some significant guys who missed practice heading into the bowl game during the week of the bowl game. Something to keep an eye on for a team that doesn't have any official commitments yet in the portal. And now there's only been more and more talent leaving. I know there's been some frustration with the Steele fumbles, but I certainly liked what he brought to the table for UCLA, going back and forth with TJ Harden running the rock. I thought they were a good 1-2 combo, riding the hotter hands, and I'd love to see them one more year because it'd be unfortunate to lose Keegan Jones for his final year at UCLA as a grad transfer if you're going to lose multiple. But in the end, there's been nothing reported, nothing yet for Steele or Humphrey. They just missed practice, and something to keep an eye on for UCLA. And hey, one more thing, Chip Kelly will be coaching the quarterbacks, right? He will be looking at the quarterback room, getting a clear, in-depth analysis, if he didn't have it already, as to what his quarterback situation is post Dante Moore in the portal. You've got Ethan Garbers, Colin Schleep. Those guys, I would think, kind of go hand in hand for the next year. Maybe you give Martin a look, Gordon, everything. There's multiple options UCLA could go with, which is blow it up, go into the portal and try and grab extreme talents, stick with what you have and recruit for the future, or just develop in-house talent one more year. And then year 2 in the Big Ten, you bring out a new quarterback who we just don't know might be that starter in 2 years. But Chip Kelly will get a clear look being the designated quarterbacks coach for a week if he doesn't know what he has already. All right. That is important for UCLA heading to the LA Bowl against Boise State, whose current or former starting quarterback this season is already committed to go elsewhere in the portal. Their backup is banged up, and now we've got to find out what they're going to deal with. All right. We're going to talk about UCLA, Boise State leading up to that game, but we're going to end the show talking UCLA women's hoops because they've got a big game against Ohio State also coming up, and they just dominated another top 25 opponent where they have not trailed in the first quarter this year. What? That is absurd. PrizePicks, we've been talking about PrizePicks, but if you haven't learned this already, hey, PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because you're not battling pros, sharks, or everything in between. It's you picking more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections where you can watch the winnings roll in. They've got injury reboot policies. The only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy that if your player gets injured in the first half, they're rebooted. Yeah, rebooted. You can go check out your entries against some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community in the promos tab of the Communities Play app and check that out with PrizePicks. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use the code lockedoncollege for first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use the code lockedoncollege. And that's all you got to know. That daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, wrapping things up here with Locked On UCLA today. UCLA women's hoops still number 2 in the country. Them pesky Gamecocks across the country. The fake university of what they like to be SC, right? The fake USC in South Carolina. That is blasphemous. And anybody who wonders what USC is, that's the team across town. That's not South Carolina. But the Bruins, on a whole other note, number 2 behind those pesky Gamecocks, and we can't wait to see if they get to play in any type of postseason, rematching and avenging last season's Sweet 16 loss. The Bruins beat a top 25 team, Florida State, 95-78, which is the bigger story and the more important one. They are now 9-0. Florida State dropped to 7-3. An early morning game on a Sunday where they dominated CSUN one day, go across the country to Connecticut in Mohegan Sun Arena. A nice, solid opportunity where for the 9th consecutive time to start the season, Corey Close's team has outscored the opponent in the first quarter. There's not been a single first 10 minutes gone by in any of their games where they have not led by usually a significant figure. And at least on 4 or 5 occasions this year, they have scored 20 or close to 20 points and kept their opponents into single figures. And even when UConn was scoring points in the first quarter, the Bruins were up 16 on the Huskies when it came to Black Friday when they were in the Cayman Islands. So this team has proven it against different teams away from home, at home, big-name teams, programs who they'll face next year in the Big Ten, playing at Arkansas, true road games. There has been a lot of fun things to look at for UCLA. And before I dive into the numbers, coming up, they play a true road game at Ohio State, a home game against Hawaii, 9 days off for a little winter break during Christmas and post-finals everything, and then they prep for Pac-12 play. They open at home against USC December 30th, 5 p.m., a primetime Saturday night-like game where that should be electric for UCLA versus Juju Watkins and the Trojans. That is as good of a basketball game, let alone women's college basketball game, as big of a basketball game as you'll get in LA during the rest of this calendar season. I can't wait for that. But for UCLA, hey, let's take a look. I don't know if I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to repeat myself for the 1 billionth time. What last year and what they needed this year is exactly what Lauren Betts has been providing. 22 points, 18 rebounds. Okay, she doesn't need 18 rebounds a game to prove how important she is, how dominant she is. But okay, 22 points, 18 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 blocks, and a steal. You combine her turnovers and personal fouls, her negatives by just blocks alone are outweighed, right? So she's affecting shots, swatting away shots, not committing fouls, scoring in what was one of her most inefficient games. She was 10 of 16. That is one of her worst shooting performances. Sarcasm implied there for UCLA's star transfer out of Stanford. Why and how they were unable to keep her is beyond me. Beyond me, because she has been absolutely fantastic. You get the top recruit in a class that was already with arguably the number 2 and one of the other best classmates, right? With the sophomores of Hawkes and Jones and Kiki Rice, who's coming off a triple-double. Hey, Betts is saying, I can do you one better. 22 and 18. She will win many Player of the Week awards by her performances this year and will easily be a newcomer of the year, will easily be someone who should be an all Pac-12 first team, I believe, with what she's been doing so far. Unbelievably dominant force in the post. All this without Emily Bissoir, where I still have not seen any official public updates on her status since going down in her international game when she left the Bruins for a game and has not been in the lineup since. But Betts has been fantastic, even stepping up her game to the next level. Charisma Osborne, after a single-digit performance scoring-wise in her last game, 16 points, 4 assists, stat stuffing. It's nice to see her not having to carry the burden at least so early. There will be a time, in my perspective, where she'll need to do a lot more scoring and have one of those dominant 30-plus performance games. But it's nice to see her easing in. Those shooting percentages are much better than a year ago, and they're staying there. 3-point percentage, overall field goal percentage, because it helps when you've got Angela Dugalic, who's in the starting lineup in this game. 16 points, 3 of 8 from 3. The Bruins, in this game, a total of 33% from downtown, and that includes them going 3 of 15 the rest of the way in a game that they just dominated from the get-go. So that means they were making their threes early, kept hoisting them up, and still won by an easy, cushy 17, putting up 95 on the Noles. Can't forget that of the starting 5, 4 of them had double figures between Kiki Rice, a quiet game for her, right? 13.6 assists, 5 rebounds. That's a quiet game for her. And then, hey, London Jones has been hitting threes relentlessly this year. The Bruins are just dominating the glass, plus 15 against Florida State, plus 15, and just making sure, hey, trying to take care of the basketball, forcing more turnovers, not so much in this game, but just the consistent ability from the time the ball is jumped to the end of the first quarter. They have just had a relentless pressure, just jump on opponents and not let them back in the game. Other than the Princeton game, there's not really been a game that's gone down to the wire back and forth, which was nice that UCLA was able to not only just win that game, but have one of those close games to come out on top against an underrated team, an underdog, if you will, that kind of keeps them focused as they've got bigger games coming, sandwiched between some games you might think of as a cupcake for a mid-major coming up like Hawaii, where UCLA should dominate that game after the Ohio State game, but before the USC game. It's fun to see this team dominate. They're going to go to new heights, hopefully, that this program has not seen before. And Corey Close has been building. But this seems like the roster that can get it done. Now they've got to shore up some things. There'll be a game. They will trail in the first quarter, I think. They won't lead after every first quarter this season. But, man, the ability to get the defensive presence down low, add to the rebounding, and enhance your interior scoring, all by the addition of one player, has simply transformed this team's ability to be a true contender in the country. They're on the short list for making not just the Final Four, but winning a national championship. That's contending with South Carolina. That's battling with the upstart Trojans across town, who they'll play pretty soon. I can't wait. Can December 30th get here soon enough? And Ohio State's really good, too. Really, really good. Their only loss was to SC. Really good. That's a true road game that should be very entertaining to watch. But we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of conference play, and this team is just waiting to be on national television, showcasing that, hey, they're going after their first national championship in program history, which is why when you're looking for Locked On UCLA, you should stay tuned, because we're going to talk about that. Leading up to the LA Bowl, more updates. Who's in the portal? Who should UCLA get in the portal? Who are they looking at? And UCLA Hoops, well, they're going to have a big game against Ohio State as well. Two different defining games for both the men and the women, both against Ohio State away from home. For different reasons, they need, one for the men need to win this game. The women don't need to, but we'd love to see them dominate once again to continue to prove how good they are. This has been Locked On UCLA. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks for your supports. Thanks for your love. Zach signing off. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.